Evening, and welcome to the Foxborough Board of Appeals September 21, 2023 meeting. This meeting and the hearings that we will be considering is being broadcast and recorded by Foxboro Cable Access. The time being 7 p.m., American Outdoor Advertising requests a modification pursuant to the Code of the Town of Foxborough, Massachusetts, Chapter 213, Signs, of Special Sign Permit Case Number 23-03, Condition Number 2, by deleting the words, "The proposed billboard shall be constructed on a pole that shall not exceed 90 feet in height," and substituting the words, "The proposed billboard shall be constructed on a pole that shall not exceed 110 feet in height." Billboard is located at 1 Springbrook Road, Assessors Map 94, Parcel 19, in Sign District 2. Mr. Burr? Look at the crowd you brought out.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. As you stated, Robert Burr here on behalf of American Outdoor Advertising. I'm joined by Steve Ross, managing member of American Outdoor Advertising. We are here this evening to seek a modification to the decision of April 26th, decision number 2303, that allowed, among other things, the billboard be constructed on a pole 90 feet in height. We would request that allowance be given for 110 feet. I have submitted a memorandum stating the facts and also the request for the modification. Essentially, allowing it to be on a higher pole will involve less tree cutting, which will be more environmentally sound. Actually, I shouldn't use the word cutting. It's always trimming. The state and even local authorities are always interested in making sure that no tree is actually lost, but instead pruned or trimmed. The higher height will ensure better commercial performance. Part of the mitigation package here in the town of Foxborough is a 5% royalty based on revenues above a certain amount of money, and also we want the sign generally to be successful. If you look at the topography of I-95, there's a hill as it approaches 1 Springbrook Road that has essentially elevated those trees, and by allowing the pole to be on a higher, or allowing the pole to be higher, the tree trimming will be greatly reduced. And finally, as Exhibit B in my submission from Watchfire Report, we've given these reports to you before, there's no negative impact in the way of additional illumination to motorists or abutters, even though abutters are significantly far away here. Should actually, in reality, produce less illumination of light at a higher level. These lights on these billboards are generally directed right at the automobiles from certain distances. There's little or no impact, but this is not going to increase illumination or negative impact. Thank you.
Okay, any questions?
Yes, so I'm just curious what has changed since we saw you in April. I'm not sure why the request was for 90 then and is now for 110. I mean, the topography hasn't changed since we saw you last. The trees haven't changed since we saw you last. I'm just curious as to what changed in 5 months.
So I may ask Mr. Ross to give an opinion on that, but generally speaking, through the process of trying to get the permit, the general study is done with drones. We actually had a crane out to the site, tried to see if 90 feet could actually work, and in the end the determination was made that 110 feet made the most sense. So there was additional investment made into the area to see exactly how it would actually perform. We also have the benefit of the summer months as well too, since that decision was originally planned. So
Yeah.
Speculation as to what the tree cover may look like as we were looking at it in the winter and the early spring is certainly different from the summer.
I do have a couple other questions. So looking back at the memorandum that we received in April on page number 7H, so that is where the request was for, 90 feet, which is what was, and being approved. So that is what you had asked for. but now you're back looking for something else. Then looking at the memorandum that we just received this week, so you talk about in Part 2, relief sought, A2, will be less invasive to tree cutting. So exactly how many trees are we talking about here?
Steve, why don't you-
Stephen Ross, American Outside Advertising. So it's just trimming, and it's a matter of trimming a lesser amount from the trees based on our request for a higher pole.
And so if we declined this evening, I'm not saying that we are, how many trees are we talking about would need to be trimmed versus?
Same amount of trees would need to be trimmed, but it would be a much deeper trimming process, and the state requires that, you know, that the trimming doesn't kill any of the trees. So therefore, we felt it'd be better for the trees, the trimming process, getting the permits from the state by raising the sign.
Okay. Sorry, there was another question going back to the, I'm just surprised that that wasn't addressed in April. It's interesting that we're going back. I mean, the trees are the trees are the trees. Leaves are no leaves. You know, trees are trees. Now going back to the April memorandum again, H, the 90-foot pole is consistent with other similar billboards constructed throughout the state. So you're asking, this, in my estimation, is over 20% higher than what was originally asked for. And so you're asking for this to be 22% higher than a height that's consistent with the rest of billboards in the rest of the state.
Generally speaking, they're between 70, 110, 90 seems to be the baseline that's usually used. So absolutely, and that's because of additional studies of the topography there.
Okay.
Specifically, the sign that's heading northbound from the hill that comes from the south.
Okay.
So there are signs in this state that are on 110 feet with a topography like this. 90 is generally what's sought.
Okay. Do you know for a fact that there would be a better commercial performance for this, as can be seen in A3 on the memorandum that we got this week? Do we know that for a fact, or is that an assumption that there'll be better commercial performance?
The view of the billboard will be a much clearer, there'll be less interference of trees into the face of the board. So yes, it'll command higher dollars, therefore benefit the town in the royalty percentage.
Okay, but we don't know that for sure tonight. That's.
I know that being in the billboard business for 31 years, that if the board is blocked, you cannot ask for as much as if it were an open read. And that's what we're asking for, to make sure that it's a clear read from the highway.
I understand that. So you're saying that the state would be okay, the state regulations would be okay with less tree trimming and having the board partially blocked? Is that what you're saying? Those seem to be a little bit
No. It has nothing to do with
each
the state. The state does not receive any funds from
No,
us.
I understand that, but you're saying that the state does not want trees to be trimmed unnecessarily.
Correct.
But it seems as if for a board, one side of the board to be seen, the state wouldn't stand in the way of a tree being trimmed. Is that correct?
Yes is a short answer. The longer answer is depending on what the trees are, and when they send out their state arborists, they'll tell us what we're able to trim and what we're not able to trim. So we're trying to avoid a situation where they say, you know what, we're not going to let you trim more than 10 feet off the top of the trees, and therefore the face is going to be partially blocked. But it's a great question, because why would they issue us a permit if they didn't expect it to be? It's almost two separate departments. The Office of Outdoor Advertising issues the permit, and then the state DOT right-of-way and environmental arborists, they issue the permit to allow the trees to be cut. So you're 100% correct. It's mixed up.
Okay, that's all of my questions for the moment.
I would comment, Ms. Mellon, on the, with regard, there's a significant investment that goes into actually building the sign, and once it's actually built, then it's built. So it's erring more on the side of assurance that it will perform well. The numbers will actually work from the sign coming from the south. So in other words, maybe 100 feet or 96 feet would actually work, but once it's built, it's built. So
And I presume that building something 110 feet high would be more costly to you than 90 feet high?
it is more costly. Yep, there's more steel. It's a great question.
And if I understood correctly also, that the original 90-foot number, you says is an average, and that was done with the study that you used drones, for example, and then you did it, once you then move forward with the project, you did more of an in-depth study with other equipment, cranes, like you mentioned.
Correct.
Determine that 110 feet would be, as you say, more beneficial in the following ways.
That's
Yeah,
correct.
I would say that we're not interested, I'm never interested in coming back to a zoning board and asking for modifications unless everything has been fully examined. So I don't believe back in April that there was as much information as there is now.
Right, so you have new information since then?
Yes.
Okay.
Lorraine, any questions?
No, really, I was interested to hear what exactly had changed since the the original application, so I have all those answers. I'm fine.
I think just the trees
Yeah,
bloomed
yep,
or had leaves.
yep.
Anybody in the public wish to be heard? Yes, sir? And tell us your name and address, please.
Yep. Do you want me to use the microphone?
Please.
My name is Mark Powers. I'm at 44 Prospect Street. I find it ironic that billboard company is telling us they're environmentalists. And one thing you may want to remember is the April, or the decision of town meeting was not the first time that Mr. Burr appeared before town meeting. There was one prior town meeting. They presented the article, and it was defeated. So there's been a long time to study where the sign's going, how much height is needed. If you go back and you look at the selectmen's meeting, you look at the meeting Mr. Keegan had at the town to discuss the articles that were going to be on the town meeting, Mr. Burr made the statement that it would be a 90-foot pole. And I agree with Mrs. Mellon, that's a 22% increase. Now, will the town get 22% more in mitigation funds if you allow them to go that high? I would urge you, this was all known ahead of time, and to me it just feels like the foot got in the door, and now let's see if we can get a little more. I don't think there's any need to go 90 feet. I see the tree issue as a red herring. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, we have a letter from Robert Green of the G. Green Construction Company, Inc. It's undated, but it was sent to us this afternoon, addressed to the Board of Appeals, to whom it may concern. I am writing this letter to express my full support for the application submitted by American Outdoor Advertising regarding special 213 signs of special sign permit case number 23-03, condition number 2. I urge the Board of Appeals to carefully consider the merits of this application and the positive impact will have on Foxborough. By granting approval, you will not only support responsible growth and development, but also uphold the spirit of fairness, progress, and community collaboration that our town stands for. Thank you for your time and consideration. I trust that you'll make a decision that reflects the best interests of the residents and the future of Foxborough. Should you require any additional information or have any questions, please do not hesitate to contact me. Sincerely, Robert Green. Any other questions?
No.
Motion to close the public portion?
And will we close the public portion?
Second?
Okay, all in favor? Okay. Anybody want to start?
So, I think that hearing the factors around why this request is coming forward makes sense to me. And the idea that, certainly it was beneficial to the town when we approved it at 90 feet. But again, I think if there's the potential to even improve on that, that's just a secondary added benefit. But I think the idea that it has been studied and it would be more visible at that height is, I think that's a reasonable request.
Kim?
I really don't understand why they're coming back to us, all this information. could have been had before. I don't really see that there has been, much of a change. That hill has always been there that they were referring to, that there's a bit of a hill on that part of 95. Those trees, we knew in April that the leaves were coming out. Leaves come out every year in May. So I really don't understand exactly what has changed and why they would be here asking us for a 22% increase. I just don't understand that. If there was a possibility that this is going to need to be higher, I think it would have been more responsible for them to come in with a number that they thought might have been, a little bit safer, and then we could have debated it, back then. I don't think that enough has changed for me to move. I am obviously very interested to hear what my fellow board members have to say before I make a decision.
Kurt? Although I agree with what Kim just said, I do understand that upon further study and more accurate situational awareness of the site, that the request is a plausible change.
Now, I agree with you 100%. Certainly, when you came to us several months ago, you felt that 90 feet was appropriate. Circumstances, further studies have indicated that a higher height would be more appropriate. Certainly, it would be appropriate to minimize the tree trimming and pruning. So I have no problems with the request. Why don't I read a motion, Lorraine, you can make, and then will you second it? Mm-hmm. Okay. So what I like is a motion to strike the words 90 feet in height from the first sentence of condition 2 in decision 23-03 and replace them with the words 110 feet in height, so that such sentence shall now read, the proposed billboard shall be constructed on a pole that shall not exceed 110 feet in height and shall be set back at least 10 feet from each lot line of the subject property.
So moved.
And so I will second this, and then we will have a discussion and vote.
Okay.
Okay, so I second the discussion of the motion, yes.
Okay, you want to?
Are we ready to vote now?
I'm ready to vote, yeah, yes.
Okay, no.
You're not ready, or?
Oh, no, I'm ready to make,
Okay.
yes.
So, all in favor? And opposed? Signed bylaw requires a majority vote, so it is approved.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Okay, the time being 7:10 PM, we have the continued appeal by J. Cook Realty LLC pursuant to Section 10.2.2.1 of the Code of the Town of Foxborough, Massachusetts, Chapter 275 zoning, of a zoning enforcement decision dated February 22, 2023, from the Town of Foxborough Building Commissioner, Zoning Enforcement Officer, stating unlawful storage at 24 East Belcher Road is a violation of Chapter 275, Zoning Table 3-1, Table of Uses, Use 3.1.6, D.4, Junkyard, Auto Graveyard. Property is located in the Limited Industrial District and the Water Resource Protection Overlay District.
Good
Gentlemen.
evening. Jeff Lovely, representing Jay Cook. Submission to the board.
Thank you.
So since we,
Jeff, hold on one second. Diana, can you see if we got Scott on the line, if he's on the
He
Zoom?
was there earlier. Is Scott Shippey on Zoom? I saw him before the meeting started, so hopefully he's still there. Okay.
There he is, okay, good. Okay, I'm sorry, go ahead.
so the document that I just handed you is a list of items that Mr. Cook has been removing from the site since our last meeting. I think we've had 2 site walks since then with Mr. Shippey. Today, his assistant, Gil, and Matt Brennan was at both of them. So I think the overall story is that we're sort of treating this as 2 parcels, the garage on the right and then the lot on the left. There is now a substantial open area which Mr. Cook has created by removing a lot of material from the site actively over the last couple of months. So he's making progress. It is going to be an ongoing process that, was accumulated over several years or many years. And that's really what we have to report to you. When we walked it today, there was a pretty good open space on the lot to the left. And that has actually provided access to additional areas which he will then continue to clean up.
All right, so let me just indicate the items that have been removed. So it's 1 30-yard container of tires, 1 Mack DM 800 dump truck, 1 Mack CH tractor, color yellow, 2 suspension cutoffs, 1.5 yard loader bucket, 11 SA rears, 1 IH 1800 truck, 5 front axles, 7 truck radiators, 2 utility trailers, 1 500-gallon water tank, 1 set of tandem fenders, 3 truck cabs, 1 R model Mack, 1 2-yard loader bucket, 1 backhoe bucket, 1 set of loader forks, 10 mounted tires, 1 30-yard container of tires, 2 30-yard box of light iron, and 1 15-yard box of heavy iron. I imagine all the bicycles are still there, correct?
Oh, actually, a lot of the bicycles are gone.
Yep, so he says a lot of the bicycles are gone.
You
which-
noticed that the other day.
Not all of them,
Not all of them,
okay.
no.
And there's more to go.
There is more to go.
In addition to what's been removed and what still has to be removed, we're still waiting for site plan with the planning board?
Yes, so Mr. Cook has had some discussions with Bay Colony. I think we're going to end up working with them. That has not been established yet. We did walk the site with Bill Buckley, talked about it in general. Mr. Cook has to figure out sort of what his long-term plan for the area is, the extent to which he would fill it and alter it and things like that. I think right now he's focusing on trying to clean it up so that it can ultimately be used as sort of so that it can be used as a contractor yard and in conjunction with his business.
Much of what we have to do is dictated by that. So the earlier that can be done, obviously the better. And I don't want this to go on forever. I don't think any of us want it to go on forever.
We join you in that sentiment.
So
We want to get through this too. It's just a lot of material and he's working on it actively and running his business and things like that.
Right.
So I hear, we want to continue to show progress. Mr. Shippey's been out, Mr. Brennan's been out. Scott was unable to attend today, but I think Gil probably reported to him that there was some decent progress, but
You know, I have a note from Mr. Brennan that I'll read into the record, so. Go ahead, ask whatever questions.
So these items that have been cleared, where are they disposed of?
these items have been disposed of, returned to their owners. To my knowledge, this,
There's nothing there that's in my ownership that's coming back.
right, so none of this stuff is coming back. This has been returned to owners, brought to, he mentioned, some of it's gone to Providence. The item, the 11 SA rears, those are what are called truck rear ends. Those were owned by a Bolivian gentleman who came and removed them. I think with the exception of one item, which was given to another business in Foxborough, these items are out of Foxborough. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, so they have not been brought elsewhere in Foxborough, and they are not coming back.
And I just want to hear Scott's
Yeah.
information.
Tim, any questions? Kurt?
Maybe after Scott.
Okay.
Yeah.
Scott, any comments, questions?
Good afternoon, or good evening, board members. Attorney Lovely is correct. On my first visit on the 28th, Mr. Cook did pull some of the stuff off the right away, so there was some progress. It was a little progress, but there was some progress. Unfortunately, I was not able to get out there today, but I relied on Matt Brennan's information, and he made some valid points that we should get an itemized list and inventory of what's there right now. That way, when we do further site visits, that we can verify that these items have actually been taken off this site. We all know it's going to take a long time for this to be cleaned up. It took a long time to get all that material in there. It's not going to be done overnight. So I think we are moving forward. The site modification should be in, and this should be contingent on that. So that's all I have as now, and I will get a formal report out to the board as soon as I can.
Do you have a sense on timing on completion of this?
What do you think? I mean, it's going to take months. He has to find a place for all of this stuff. Much of it is not owned by him. He's got to truck it back to its owners. I don't know. Can we estimate?
It would be, I don't know, it would be a guess.
Yeah,
I really
I mean, it's
can't.
I think we can commit to steady progress. I don't know if we can give you an end date at this point. I would suggest that we continue to work with Mr. Shippey and Mr. Brennan and show a consistent progress and move it that way.
What are your options if an owner refuses to take back?
They won't.
What if they do?
I have good relationships with these people. They're not going to play any games with me.
Well, I guess the question is like, what if perhaps they do? Do you keep it? Do you sell it? Or what would you do?
I don't know. Find a home for it.
It's an interesting question. You know, arguably you could, offset the value of the item by saying there was a storage fee and
Yeah.
dispose of it that way.
Yeah. I would just be more comfortable with some kind of a time frame, not just some open-ended, ambiguous, guess or nothing, I mean, the stuff was accumulated there. The stuff is the responsibility of the owner to get it off there. So I would say that the least we could get is a time frame so that this doesn't drag on forever. I think that's reasonable.
I mean,
I mean, do we do anything in life that doesn't have a time frame? Do you tell your bank, well, I'm going to pay off my mortgage in 100 years, not 20? So I think it's reasonable for us to ask for a time frame on this.
So I would assume something like this could take as long as a year from now to completion.
I mean,
We
the
don't know
appeal
the
first
winter.
came in when? We first started hearing this in April. So here we are in September. If you're talking another year from now, that'll be like, what, 16 months, 18 months? I think it's unreasonable. I realize that, as Scott said, it took a while to get the stuff there, and it's obviously going to take a while to get back. But as Kurt has indicated, some reasonable time frame, would be appropriate. Let me read the inspection log from Matt Brennan relative to today's visit. And it's dated 9/21/2023. It was written at 12:30. Details on-site with building department officials to perform a follow-up inspection at 24 East Belcher Road. At the time of the inspection, I met with Attorney Lovely, Mr. Cook, Inspector Gil Benowen, and walked the property. During the inspection, I observed an area of soil 40 feet by 80 feet that had been cleared. During previous inspections, this area had items such as trucks, diesel tanks, bridge parts, and other assorted items. However, some of these items appeared to be pushed back into the wooded areas, such as the bridge supports and trucks. See photos. I asked Mr. Cook if he had a list of items that he removed. He had a handwritten list, which he claimed was the items he removed. I requested to take a photo of this list, but my request was denied and was told a typed list would be provided to me at a later date. I assume this is the typed list?
Yes.
Okay. Based on this inspection, I recommend the following. No other items should be placed in the recently cleared area. A follow-up inspection should be conducted as required by the building commissioner. Items should be inventoried so that inspections can better ensure they are not placed elsewhere on site, or specific items should be agreed upon to be removed from the property. All other areas of the site remain the same, and no areas of soil staining or evidence of environmental contamination was found. And please see the photos below. So, I think we've all seen these. You seen these? Okay.
Yes, thank you.
So obviously, there's more work to be done. I have no problems with any of Matt's recommendations. I think the issue, though, is how much time do we provide? When I spoke with Mr. Shippey earlier this week, I said that I was hoping that this could be wrapped up by the end of the year. But I did acknowledge that was premature. Scott, any thoughts as to how much more time?
Usually, 90 days is usually where I usually start my timeline, but I'm not sure how fast he can do, what he can accomplish in 90 days. I do wish we'd have a list of what inventory is there. That way we can keep a close eye on it and maybe do increments of every 30 days, do a site visit on this place and make sure that he's making progress. And then I don't know if the board feels like 6 months is enough or too much.
I mean, I think 6 months with checks every 30 days, that will show the progress is being made, is reasonable.
I mean, 6 months, it puts us in March, which is then roughly a year from the time this was filed.
And if board, if I may, the ultimate goal here is to get compliance. So working with the defendant is probably in best. So a year from date, I feel, is reasonable.
When you're saying a year from date, you're saying a year from the time that the appeal was filed?
Correct.
So in other words, another 6
Correct.
months? Okay.
I just have one question, looking at this, the items that have been taken off of 24 East Belcher. I'm noticing that there is, the very first item is one 30-yard container of tires, and then third from the bottom is one 30-yard container of tires. Does that mean there's been two 30-yard containers, or is that just a repeat?
Yeah, it's just because this was, it was an earlier date, that's all, so there was two. This was 2.5, but I put 2.
Okay, so they're two separate. Okay, thank you.
All right, let me do this. Open up for public comments, questions? Yes, sir.
Compliance, that's a good word. I like that. As you know, I live down on Springfield Road, 12 Spring Street. I drive by up East Belcher Road every day, get caught. And I can tell you the progress that's been made has been in the last 2 days. Other than that, he hasn't done a thing up there. Everything, as far as the dumpsters of tires, 2 dumpsters of tires, I don't believe that. There wasn't 2 dumpsters worth of tires on that property. I have pictures of everything here, if you'd like to look at them. It will show you.
That would be a lot of work for 2
Yeah.
days, huh?
Also, this has been going on since 2010. There's a letter that was written to the building commissioner back then, Bill Gaspara. That's how long this stuff has been going on. So he's accumulated this stuff over a period of 10 years. And he thinks that he should have another year to clean it up. A lot of this stuff is going down to Spring Street, which I've proven with photographs. And a lot of it has been going back and forth, especially vehicles. If he doesn't have room on East Belcher, they come down to Spring Street. He's got 3 properties on Spring Street. Then when you get after him for Spring Street, then he brings it back up onto East Belcher. I've also been told that some of that stuff went to the commercial place down the street from his lot, DiGirolamo, I believe, and he dumped off some stuff down there. I saw a trailer go out of there one day with a tractor on it. That was one tractor on a flatbed that probably shouldn't have been on the road because it had no mud flaps, taillights, or anything on it. But we have to look at, he has a special permit, I believe, to run a repair shop out of there. Does anybody know what the stipulation is with that special permit? You know, how many vehicles are supposed to actually be there on that lot? And also, the lot to the right of his building is a developmental lot only. And it's just loaded with junk vehicles. That bulldozer that you saw in there was on the corner, which is a very dangerous corner when you're coming up and around. If somebody's not paying attention, he had that dozer on a flatbed, and it was right next to the road because he puts out an orange cones, so you won't drive into it. He's also parking his big tow trucks, the tractors, trailers. They're practically on the road with cones all the time. Obviously, he puts the cones there because he's encroaching onto the roadway. And the reason why I put that picture of his tractor in front of his house on Spring Street, he brings that down there and he lets it sit there and idle for 15, 20 minutes. Now, if you're in a neighborhood, you don't want to listen to that. And that's been done on many occasions. The other thing, as I said, there's been no real progress for the removal of junk. The illegal storage of heavy equipment, he doesn't, you know, it's a junkyard. We all know that. East Belcher, special permits. Like I said, to the right is developmental land only, and there is a brook that runs down past that property. And all those vehicles he has on that right side are actually encroaching onto the town land. As you can see it from a Google map, that they had migrated further and further and further onto town property. So I think as far as the timeline goes, we've been dealing with this since 2010. If he can't get rid of that stuff in 3 months' time, I mean, he should be able to get a junkyard salvage company to come in there and clear that stuff away. And believe me, before we get done, we got Spring Street we have to deal with still.
Let me ask you a couple questions. First of all, and again, I'm going to repeat myself.
Yep,
Spring
that's
Street is in the courts.
Yep.
We
No,
have
only one
no-
lot.
No control over that particular matter.
Yep.
If, and I'll make the suggestion, you might want to consider it, hiring an attorney and trying to intervene in the case.
No, I'm not paying another dime. I pay enough
Okay.
taxes. in
So let me
this
ask you
town.
my next question. What is your interest with East Belcher? You're not a party in interest from a legal issue.
Everybody, what's your interest? Is to clean the damn place up. We don't want to live next to a junkyard.
You don't live next to a junkyard. This is on East Belcher.
Have you been down to Spring Street? Have you checked out everything? No.
This has nothing to do with Spring Street.
DEP. Because he's transferring stuff back and forth. You don't see that. We see it.
What we are trying to deal with is East Belcher.
Right.
And as
We have a bylaw.
Mr. Shippey indicated, what we're trying to determine
Yeah.
is can we get compliance?
Yep.
And again, as you indicated, this has been a long-standing problem. I don't
Sure it has.
disagree with you.
Yeah.
I'm not going to criticize a prior building commissioner or prior building commissioners.
Right.
It's a long-standing problem. It's not going to be fixed overnight.
I don't expect it to be, but I expect to see some progress.
But apparently, there has been some progress. It may not be to your satisfaction, and it may not be to Mr. Shippey's satisfaction, but apparently there has been some progress.
Can I talk to Scott for one?
No, you can't. If
Oh, I
you,
will in a minute.
you'll talk to the board.
And I'll
Okay.
talk to the building inspector.
You'll talk to the
He's
board.
here to
No,
negotiate.
you'll go through the board.
I'll talk to him.
You obviously have a problem with Mr. Cook.
I don't have a
Okay.
problem with it.
No, we all have a
Look
problem. We're all here. We're all
You think
here
they're
as a
here just to
neighborhood.
support me? No,
If-
they're tired of it.
If the problem is with East Belcher, this board will deal with it. If the problem is anything personal, if it's anything beyond that, this is not the proper
It had
forum
nothing
for
to
that. Do
do with person.
you have any other questions, any other comments?
Yeah. A lot. And this is from all the neighbors. It's not me. I'm just speaking for them. And I haven't been rude to you, and I don't expect you to be rude to me.
I don't think I've been rude to you.
I'm talking to Mr. Shippey. He is the building commissioner of the town of Foxborough. I pay taxes here. That's all I'm asking. Scott, do you really think there's been good progress at that property?
There's been progress.
Yeah, there's been progress, but nothing that it should be for the amount of time he's had.
First of all, I may address that I've never been rude to you.
I never said you were.
You just did.
No, I didn't. I said right
No, it's
here.
me.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, I think there should be more progress, but my ultimate goal is to get compliance. That is the That is the ultimate goal
Is
here.
our goal too.
If I said right in the beginning, 90 days, that's a lot of time.
Yep.
If it's more than, we're going to be doing 30-day increment site visits. We will take it from there.
Okay,
What if we did
somebody should be taking
30
pictures.
days for like,
We are taking pictures,
Yeah,
sir.
so we can see the progress
at that
as it's
point?
moving.
Sorry,
Making
Scott, you just said
decisions.
we should be taking, you should be taking pictures, and Scott said,
when to happen? So
We are taking pictures.
Okay. All right.
in my-
I don't want to have to be the cop in this situation. I just want it rectified. We've been dealing with it much too long. That's all I ask of the board.
I'd just ask that you
And that's all I
respect-
ask of Mr. Cook.
Respect the
Just
chairman's
clean it up.
instructions. I'd just ask that you respect the chairman's instructions, that's all.
I respect you guys.
No, I'm not
Well,
saying,
you haven't really
you
acted
haven't
respectful
respected.
tonight, in all due respect to you. And we don't.
Are you kidding me?
No, I'm not kidding you. I think we should have some respect and decorum for everyone in here. And I didn't come up here and yell at you and act
I'm not
rude.
yelling.
And when Barney says to you, as the chairman, address the board, and you disrespect him by saying, I pay my taxes, we all pay our taxes. You're not unique.
What neighborhood do you live in?
Do you want all this shit down in
All
your
right,
neighborhood?
that's it for now. Let's make a decision as to how we're going to proceed.
Just let's get it cleaned up.
Yes,
My name is Kathy Young. I live at 71 Spring
could you
Street.
slowly.
Oh, sorry. I just want to say,
Tell me who you are and
I just told you.
Yeah, but we couldn't hear you. Can
Oh.
you slower?
Okay, be nice. My name is Kathy Young, and I live at 71 Spring Street.
okay, go ahead, please.
I just want to say that I feel like if this was another business, it would be treated differently. I've known a couple of businesses that have broken rules, and the board and Scott have been all over them to try to get it done. This has been going on since February. We all live in the general neighborhood of this business. It's a mess. It's junk. He just moves things around. He doesn't follow rules, and I feel like it needs to be done quicker. I understand that, you want to give him time, but he said he has good relationships with the people that all this junk belongs to, so why can't he just call them and say, come get it? There's no reason that all this time needs to happen and all these meetings need to happen and all these delays. There's no reason for that. If it was a different business, you would be on top of it and you'd make them do things that they're supposed to do. I have personally witnessed him driving down the street, or I don't know if it was him or another driver, but it was his truck with all different types of machinery on it, all different parts, all different things, pull into his Spring Street property. I've seen it at night. I hear the trucks. Is he removing junk from his East Belcher? Probably, but I don't know that for a fact, but I've seen it at night. So all I'm asking is to be fair to us, be fair to him, and just get this done. Don't drag it out anymore. Just get it done. Make him clean up his property like every other business in Foxborough should, and get it over with. That's all I'm asking. Thank you.
Thank you.
So here's what I think I'd like to suggest. Continue the hearing until December. Diana, when is the meeting in December?
December, 1, 2, 3, it would be December 21st.
Continue the hearing to December 21st. Scott, would you be able to do another inspection before then?
Absolutely.
can we
well,
do
are
it
we talking
every
about?
30 days?
Yeah, I was going to say that. I thought there was mention of looking at it every 30 days. Are we going to do that, or what do you think, Scott?
I could probably do one in October and one in November, if that pleases the board. And with permission with Mr. Cook.
So inspections in October, November, December?
Yes.
a list of items as quickly as possible, say like before the end of this month, of the items that are on site?
Can you do that?
I can have a rough list, yeah.
He'll do his best.
Mr. Chairman, that would be very helpful with our inspections, if we can have that list
Yep.
prior to our inspection.
Is it possible that we ask for not only, this list is great, items that have been taken off of 24 East Belcher. Is it possible to ask for future lists when items have been removed, where they have gone to?
That makes sense.
This might, and I'm saying this in hopes that that could be something that might help the neighbors. So if you're understanding it's being moved and where it's going to, perhaps.
And I'd like you to file site plan. I'd like you to be before the planning board before we meet in December. I mean, I can't obviously dictate when they're going to meet, but I'd like to have that at least filed before our December meeting. Ideally, even meet with them before our December meeting.
We will undertake to try that. I know when we were talking to Bill, he said he couldn't put it on his schedule until late October to do the survey work and things like that, but we'll try to move that along.
And I think the other thing would be to have a deadline
Yeah, that's essential.
of,
Final compliance.
final compliance, or final compliance determination. So a deadline for determination in our March meeting. So that would be what date?
21.
3/21/24?
And so one thing, when we reconvene again on this in December, we will be looking towards only X more weeks after that we are looking for a compliance determination. So interested in what has been taken off and exactly what is left and how that will be accomplished, because there's not much time between the December meeting and the March meeting. So I'd like to look back at what has been accomplished and also look forward as to how to accomplish what is remaining.
Anything else? Anything else?
No, as long as we have some kind of a deadline that we can work with, and yeah.
So again, we'll continue this hearing to December 21.
Mr. Chairman, are those photographs part of the record? They're on the counter in front of you?
Doesn't say when they were taken, that's the thing.
There's a hand raised that's being ignored.
I mean, I don't know who took them, when they were taken. There's no date on them. So,
Those were taken 2-3 days ago.
and we've got pictures that are taken today, so we'll consider these part of them, all right? You want copies of these, or?
Yes, please.
Okay. Yeah, you had your hand up? And also tell us who you are, please, and
Yes. My name is Tom Alexik. I live at 52 Spring Street. And I'm glad to hear that there's been efforts made for compliance. And most of the points being made by the board on the last 10 minutes were issues that I was going to raise. I think that the board's suggestions and recommendations should be very explicit. I think the timelines need to be very explicit. The idea of having a complete inventory, that should be verified. I think it's crucial that every step taken needs to be the date, the structure of this process moving forward has to be in the control of the board, not so much in the hands of the owner of the business. I also would like to point out that we're heading into winter, and a lot of the material up there is on the ground. Some of it might be partially buried. And that's just another part of this, because that could be a matter of delay in getting this site cleared up. Those are my only points.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
So we talked about the inventory would be due 9/30/23.
Let me just read it off again. So we're going to continue tonight's hearing to 12/21/23. The building commissioner will make inspections in October, November, and December. Those are obviously dates that will be at his convenience and Mr. Cook's convenience. We want a list of items that are currently on site by 9:30. And that list should go to Scott with a copy to Diana. As items are removed, a list of those items and the location and the date when they're removed. Site plan to be filed with the planning board prior to our meeting in December. And the deadline for our determination would be March 21, 2024.
And can I just add, when we see them again in December, I want to make sure that we understand exactly what has been accomplished, and that is within one of the items that you read, the list of items removed, the date removed, and where it has gone. And also, I want to make sure in December that we understand exactly what is left and how each of those things will be taken care of. So that's 3 months to come up with a list. Exactly what's left and where it's going in December.
So like any other endeavor, it's an inventory, a time frame,
Yep.
a plan, not just some open-ended thing. That's ridiculous.
Okay. Jeff, you want to sign this? This way I don't have to track it down. Diane, I'll send you a copy. Okay. Thank you. Okay, thank you.
Yes.
We're done.
I got one question.
Go ahead.
Shipping containers. Spring Street, we have several shipping
Again,
containers.
We're not dealing with Spring Street.
Just want to ask you how we go about.
Speak with Mrs. Shipping.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll ask him. Thank you.
Mr. Cook, I cannot hear you.
Scott is out of the office until Monday.
Okay, I'll see you on Monday. I just want to talk to you about shipping.
He says he'll come there on Monday.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
All right, the time being 7:20 PM, Philip Mohan requests a variance pursuant to the Code of the Town of Foxborough, Massachusetts, Chapter 275 zoning, Section 4.1.1, Table 4-1, to allow the construction of a carport with a side yard setback of 13.2 feet where 15 is required. Property is located at 13 Moore Street in the R40 residential, and agricultural district, and the Water Resource Protection Overlay District. Okay, just wait a second until it quiets down. If you could please, we have other hearings. They should.
They don't work in here. They're for more of the people at home. It's not to broadcast in the room.
Yeah. Okay. You're on. And you are.
Philip Mohan.
Mm-hmm.
Tracy Mohan.
Okay. So tell us what you want to do.
I'd like to add an addition of a carport to the existing property onto the home. And the size of it would be 20 feet wide for 2 cars. And it works out where the house isn't exactly parallel to the property line. So there's one section that would encroach on the 15 feet setback to the neighbor's home. It do cover the existing driveway that's there. And the idea is we didn't want to remove any trees or anything else, and it would just extend from the house and cover the driveway area in that area of the house. I believe there was some drawings submitted from RIM Engineering, Craig.
Just one.
Yep.
That's
So let me ask you this. To authorize a variance, there are 3 things we have to determine. One that is due to circumstances that relate to either soil condition, shape, or topography of the property, and it's got to be unique to your property. That's going to require, the variance. 2, that if we were to enforce the bylaw literally, it would cause some substantial hardship to you. And 3, the relief that you've requested, in other words, the variance that you've requested, it has to be granted without any substantial detriment to the town. So really what I want to concentrate on is those first 2 criteria. What is unique about this property as far as the soil conditions or the shape or the topography that may necessitate or dictate why you need a variance of 13 feet where 15 feet is required.
I don't know if I have an answer for that, other than kind of the rectangle that we're adding to the side of the house, and the way that the property line versus kind of the house goes over at the 20-foot mark in the first beginning portion of it, where it works out to, anything
13.2.
making it less. We looked at that number, saying, okay, what would it be if we kept within the 15 feet? And it just really doesn't work with the with getting 2 cars in there, and pretty much a 20-foot wide is standard, I guess, garage width, and that would be the only reason for all the considerations of it. But there's really nothing unique about the area other than, backyard is lower than the front, one of those types of homes.
So in other words, there's no, for example, if I look at, again, the rim,
Yep.
there's nothing here in the way of ledge or wetlands or anything of that nature that would dictate why the house is closer to that
No,
level?
I believe it's just originally the way it was originally built, the home. So that's been there since, I believe, the 1960s. It was originally done. It was work done earlier on adding a second story to it back in the late 2000s. That was done by my wife's father at the time, and yeah, there's really nothing overly unique. Never came with a garage. So it's just,
And if the carport was not 20 feet, I guess 20 by 24 is the typical two-car garage. I have a one-car garage, which is 12 feet in width. If you were to comply with the 15-foot setback, you'd be, what, about 18 feet, Kurt?
Yeah.
Could you squeeze two cars in that way? One of the issues is on that side of the house, because of the basement being lower, is we have those half moons. And literally you have to, you can't be that close to the house with the car to begin with. So it kind of offsets everybody in the driveway to begin with. Because of that, step off, and we have 3 of them there along for the basement windows along that side of the house, right where that is. So that actually, is an area that we can't use, can't park, can't walk. So that's kind of where it offsets things. When you look at what the existing driveway that already exists there, is the line under the carport view. That's the existing driveway. So, and the way it's shaped.
The existing driveway is a little bit wider than 20 feet.
What?
It's slightly wider than 20 feet.
Yeah, the existing driveway is, yes.
Okay. Kim, you want any questions?
So I'm looking right now, well, I suppose this is for later. For the applicant, I do not have any questions.
Okay. Lorraine?
No, I'm all set.
Kurt?
No questions, no.
Well, let me go back to my other question. If instead of being 13.2 feet, you were the requisite 15 feet, that would decrease the width, I'm thinking, to about 18?
About 18 feet, yeah.
You can't squeeze 2 cars in?
I
mean, and you got a long driveway. You can obviously put one.
And that's, yeah, I mean, what the idea is one of the cars that would be in the carport is the wife's car. The one alongside of it would be mine. Plus I have an older convertible vehicle that keep in there as well. So it's kind of one of the things that, and it was also for protection reasons. We had just recently, what was it, 2 years ago, we bought the Toyota, and a bunch of acorns, looks like a hailstorm, hit the car, like literally 3 months after owning it.
I should bring it to my backyard. It's like,
yeah, so it was for protection, and it's like, well, and now we have another vehicle that's, it's a 20-year-old or convertible. I'm like, well, we don't want to get all the cars damaged, so we want to do a carport. And, so that's where the numbers worked out, working with Cahill Construction here in Foxborough. They're actually doing the deck on the back right now as we speak. So, and that was the reasoning, is the 20-foot, so that we'd have, sufficient room to get in and out and around it. The main entrance that we use for the house is through the existing deck into the kitchen, so we don't have to walk through the living room and the front door in the wintertime and rain. So it's just kind of just the way the house is worked out.
so you're essentially parking 3 vehicles there.
Yeah, I have my other SUV, which would be behind it, and when my son's home, he's home for a couple of months every year. He parks in the driveway. So.
Okay. Any questions here at all? Scott, any questions?
My only question is this a true carport, or is it going to be a garage? Is it going to be open sides or closed sides?
It's going to be open side, so it's going to have, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Anybody in the public wish to be heard? Motion to close the public portion?
I move we close the public portion.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. I understand the need and the desire. Unfortunately, the variance criteria isn't there, to my mind. There's nothing about the property that dictates where the house is. You know, if there was ledge here, if there was wetlands here, and the house had to be placed closer to the, I guess it would be the northerly boundary line, I would say, might be a stretch, but we can get there. But even beyond that, you can still have a carport, just not 20 feet in width, and not violate the setback, and therefore not require a variance. That's my thought. So that there isn't substantial detriment in that regard. There isn't substantial hardship, rather, in that regard.
I agree.
So question, to put the carport on the other side of the house, is that
Well, there's no driveway there, number one.
right?
Number two, they would have to get curb cut authorization.
Yeah.
No, we couldn't, that's where
And,
Septic
the septic system.
you know, it doesn't make sense there, I would think, either.
The septic
The
system's on
septic
the other
system.
side of the
Septic
house.
systems on the other
Yeah,
side of
we
the
can't, we
house?
can't do
Okay.
anything on the other side of the house because there's septic tanks are there. Okay.
Ernie?
And I guess the only other option would be to make it a longer carport as opposed to a wider one.
I mean, there are things you can do in that regard, yes.
Yeah.
You know, it's interesting, the footprint of the house is, right down 792 square feet, and the carport is 600, so the carport is fairly, you know, sizable in relation to the house. I just can't get there from a zoning standpoint, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Kurt?
I agree with you, Barney.
Okay. Somebody want to make a motion?
I move that we deny the application.
Second?
Okay, all in favor? So you can't put this carport up, but there's nothing that prohibits you from putting one that would not violate the setback.
Right.
Okay, I'll talk
And
with,
just speak with Mr. Shippey about that.
yeah, we'll get that worked out then and figure out what we'll do from there.
Okay? Thank you.
All right, thank you. Have a great evening. Oh, I almost went back too far.
All right, the time being 7:30 PM, we have the continued public hearing. James Kingston requesting a special permit pursuant to the code of the town of Foxborough, Massachusetts, Chapter 275 zoning, Section 4.1.1, Table 4-1, Use Group F1, to allow the construction of a single dwelling unit on a non-conforming lot to be used as a 5-bedroom independent living home for physically impaired residents, as well as any other special permits, variances, or findings as may be required with respect to the foregoing. The subject property is located at 187 Main Street in the R40 Residential and Agricultural District. It is not located in any restrictive overlay district. So nothing's changed since last month, in the sense that the ultimate program provider, or the intentional program provider, does not wish to be identified.
Correct.
Correct? One question that I do have, I think we asked that last time, but I don't believe we got an answer, is does the residential program need to be licensed
By the state?
by the state? Let me ask this. You've done this kind of program elsewhere,
Yes.
correct? Have you been required to obtain a license from the state?
No.
Okay. Do you know whether the,
I'm not sure. I'm not involved in any of the...
okay. Go ahead with any questions, please.
I don't have any questions at the moment.
Lorraine?
I don't have any.
Kurt, you weren't here obviously last month, but let's open it to the public again. We have to have a motion because we had closed the public portion, so.
Okay.
So motion to reopen?
Motion to reopen to the public.
Lorraine, second it?
Second?
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So does anybody in the public wish to be heard? I've got Ms. Di Pasquale's communication, and I will read that, but do you wish to speak to us, or?
Why don't you read it first, and then if I have something to add.
Okay. So this is from Mary Di Pasquale of 191 Main Street. It's dated September 14, 2023, regarding Mr. James Kingston, special permit for 187 Main Street, Foxborough, Mass. Below is a list of concerns that I have regarding this request before the Board of Appeals. The application requests a single dwelling unit to be used as a 5-bedroom independent living home, in parentheses, institutional use, for occupants using wheelchairs to be built in a R40 district. Project summary says this project is the construction of a new single-family detached dwelling. The existing single-story structure was removed within the past 2 years. The new dwelling will be single-story with a building footprint of approximately 2,600 feet, with a partial finished basement and crawl space, height of the building to be 20 feet. The dwelling will house a total of 5 wheelchair-bound residents who receive custodial care in a non-institutional environment. See attachment for definition of independent living home.
I didn't put that in. I have a copy of it.
Okay. Mr. Kingston is requesting an appeal of the R40 district that is for residential and agriculture to build a 5-bedroom living home. He is purchasing the property to build a family dwelling, but will be leasing it to a foundation for profit. He is creating a business in a residential zone. Then you list bullet points. Stormwater regulations do not apply to a single-family dwelling. This is not a single-family dwelling. I am requesting a drainage report and design that shows no drainage to my property. Property lines, copy of a registered stamped land surveyor. Lot lines worked out by registered land surveyor and posted on property line. Concerned with Glossa engineering plan that shows sloping of land to my property line. Removal of trees to place leaching area will allow water to run to my property. Sloping driveway that is being lowered for better access. Side of house that has bedrooms is elevated above the driveway with a walkway for allowing entrance to each bedroom via the sidewalk. How wide is the walkway and what kind of railing will be placed to ensure safety of transporting to individual rooms? I assume this is a continuation of your letter?
Yes.
Okay. According to a discussion with the CPA, the following information pertains to the proposal for 187 Main Street. If tenants are under custodial care, then the property will be considered a commercial property, such as a group home or assisted living facility, and therefore considered a business. Property is being purchased and built by James Kingston. He will be owning and maintaining the property and therefore is a business venture. R40 district is for residential and agriculture. See attachment regarding Seskin Homes, LLC. And that is a copy of your filing with the Secretary of the Commonwealth. Seskin Homes, LLC is duly organized in Massachusetts. Filing was dated November 7, 2018. The general character of the business of the LLC is to engage in the purchase and management of real estate and to engage in any activities directly or indirectly related or incidental thereto, and to engage in any other activity in which a limited liability company organized under the laws of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts may lawfully engage, which is really commonplace verbiage from my experience. Do you wish to add to this?
Yes, I'm Mary DePasquale at 191 Main Street. Like I stated in the last meeting, I'm very concerned that when you read what the property site, the plan, versus what he's requesting, it's like a double-edged sword. He's saying, okay, there was an existing single-family dwelling on the property, and I'm going to build another one. But now I'm going to turn around and I'm going to have it as a residential home for a cerebral foundation, which, again, I fully understand. I was in medicine for 50 years. I know, unfortunately, all things that happen to people. But if he's going to purchase the land, he's going to build it, then he's going to turn it into a residential property. He's going to be maintaining, or if anything needs to be fixed on that building, then he's going to be responsible. He's leasing it. He's going to be receiving money. That is not, R40 is for residential and agriculture. I have a hard time. This is a business venture. He is going to make money off it. If the lease gets broken, or he decides to sell that property, now you have a building that has 7 entrances to it. 5 of them have bedrooms with doors that open to the outside. That property, which I understand from the building commissioner, that this request that he's got here now, if something was to happen and things changed, then they would have to come back to the board. Well, how would you know that happened unless you had a resident that happened to see something different going on there? Would have a situation of another whistleblower saying, wait a minute, something has changed here and nobody knows about it. So that's my concern. It's not like myself, I've lived in my home for 50 years. For someone to say, I'm putting this in and I've got a 12-year lease for someone to use it, like I said, 12 years, things could change. Or next year, he could build that property and say, you know what, I need money. I have to sell it. It's a business. I'm sorry. It's not residential.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Good evening. Alan Haskell, 183 Main Street. So I have a question, I guess, for the applicant here.
You'll have to ask the questions to us.
Okay, if we know this, is he already owning this, or is he coming here for like an advisory finding?
Correct me if I'm wrong. You probably have a purchase and sale agreement that you signed.
Right.
It's probably contingent upon our approval.
Yes.
Among other things.
Yes.
Okay?
The board, with the last applicant, you explained the process and what you can allow for variance. And one of those was a hardship. And I don't see what this is creating a hardship for him if he has not purchased the property already, if he doesn't have a final purchase. This isn't creating an undue hardship. He's going into this with his eyes wide open as to what may or may not be approved by the board. So in doing so, he's creating, if there is a hardship, he's creating the hardship on himself. And it's not finding himself in a situation that a hardship was created, say, by a change in zoning regulations or anything else that's occurred. And that's really the purpose of people coming before the board, is to seek variances, if I'm not mistaken, is to...
This is not
correct.
a request for a variance. It's a request for a special permit.
For his special permit.
And the criteria for a special permit is not the same. It's not even as strict in a sense as for a variance, but hardship is not, while hardship is a criteria that we have to consider for a variance, it's not for a special permit.
Okay. The question that I guess I have too is the dwelling that was on that site originally that was removed within the last couple of years. It was a non-conforming use on that site because it did not have a sufficient setback from the road. And what he's planning to do here is making that, putting a building up that's even more non-conforming to zoning regulations by increasing the size on the lot, increasing the coverage of the lot, all those kinds of things. So it's more non-conforming than what was already there.
No. The prior house was non-conforming for two reasons. Number one, the lot has less than 40,000 square feet in area. And number two, the frontage is less than 200 feet. The prior house met all the other dimensional requirements. And he will be meeting all, as the plan has been proposed to us, will be meeting all the dimensional requirements. It will still be non-conforming, and it'll still be non-conforming because, again, the lot is less than 40,000 square feet in area, and there's less than 200 feet in frontage. But he's not increasing any nonconformity. It's not going to be more nonconforming than the prior house.
Well, I would think that changing the character of the use of the facility from a single-family house to a business is definitely making it more non-conforming than what the prior
Well, again, when we
residence
talk about
was.
non-conforming, we talk about dimensional requirements, not the nature. That's a use issue, but we talk about dimensional requirements as far as non-conforming. So the prior house was non-conforming, and this one, for the same exact reasons, would be non-conforming.
Okay, thank you. I guess just the last thing I would make the board aware of is this is a very stable neighborhood as far as residential, single-family homes. As a matter of fact, just within the last year, a house was taken down right at the corner of Main Street and Cross Street, and it was replaced by another single-family house. So it's not like it's a neighborhood in transition from residential to commercial property or anything of that nature. It's very stable, and all any new construction that's been taking place in that area has all been conforming to that idea of a neighborhood environment and not a business environment. And I thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Okay, any other, well, let's close the public portion then.
I move that we close the public portion.
Second?
Okay, all in favor? Any other questions that anybody has?
No.
Anything further you wish to tell us?
Only that our goal would be to build this home so no one would know the difference. It's going to look and feel like a residential home. You're not going to notice the difference from the street. That would be our goal.
This home is of these 5 people. This is their home, and it's as if it's not a business. It's not a nursing home. It's not a clinic. It's these people's home, and they are paying rent. Just as if I was to build a home in Foxborough, I believe I would also have the ability to rent that home. It would, if I build a single-family home. And so that's what we are asking to do here, is to build a home, and we're going to rent it. And this time we're actually being very, it's being very transparent, and really putting it forth to the neighborhood about who will be renting this home, and it is people in wheelchairs. And because of this part of the use. Okay, we put it forth to the town. We've said exactly who will be renting this home, and it's a home. It's the part about it being a business is it's not a business.
Would they be taken out, like going to school?
That-
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. We've closed the public portion. One of Ms. Di Pasquale's comments was relative to having a land surveyor survey the property. I guess there's a question that she has as far as, where the property lines are. Are you financing the purchase of the home?
Yes.
So certainly the bank or whoever's financing it will want the property to be surveyed, so that will be done.
Correct.
Okay. The trees along the property line between this property and Di Pasquale, I would hope your intent is to keep as much of that as possible?
Correct.
Okay. Anything else? We have a motion to close? Sorry, we already closed. Ready for discussion?
Yes.
Okay, bear with me, please. This is going to take a while. Since we last met, I've had numerous conversations internally with Paige Duncan, who's our acting town manager, Gabby Jordan, who's the staff planner, Mr. Shippey, the building commissioner, and Pat Costello, who is the town council. And one thing that was raised, and it was actually raised in the context of another matter, but it applies to this particular matter, is the Federal Fair Housing Act. And the Federal Fair Housing Act prohibits housing practices that discriminate on the basis of race, color, sex, national origin, family status, or disability. In 2016, the United States Departments of Justice and Housing and Urban Development issued a joint statement in which they construed the Federal Fair Housing Act to apply to zoning and land policies and practices that treat groups of persons with disabilities less favorably than groups of non-disabled persons. And in that respect, and as set forth in that statement, we accordingly would be prohibited, among other things, from doing any of the following. Number one would be imposing by means of zoning laws and their application restrictions or additional conditions on group housing for individuals who are disabled that we would not impose on families or other groups of unrelated individuals. Second, applying zoning or land use laws that respect housing based on the fears, prejudices, or stereotypes of the protected characteristics of a group home's prospective or possible future residents, or excluding or limiting group homes to individuals with specific types of disabilities, thereby discriminating against individuals with other types of disabilities. In addition, the Massachusetts Zoning Act in part states that, and I'll quote, the imposition of land use requirements on congregate living arrangements among non-related persons with disabilities that are not imposed on families and groups of similar size or other unrelated persons shall constitute discrimination. So what all this means in sum is we cannot treat a group home that will be the residence or the prospective residence of 5 handicapped or disabled individuals any differently than we would a home that would be the residence of 5 unrelated individuals. So contrary to what I had stated, and I was in error at our last hearing session, we can't distinguish between or classify individuals with different disabilities. As you may recall, I thought that we could specify that only individuals, say, with cerebral palsy or individuals who were in wheelchairs, impose that as a condition and not allow other disabled individuals to reside here. We cannot do that. that would be deemed by DOJ and by HUD to be a violation of the Fair Housing Act. And I think it would also be a violation of the Massachusetts Zoning Act. So in essence, we can't treat a prospective home for 5 individuals who are disabled, regardless of what that disability may be, as long as it's recognized as a disability, any differently than if the 5 of us wanted to live together. If we do approve this, I still have conditions that we can impose, but they would be no different than the conditions that we would impose with respect to any residential structure housing 5 individuals. Any questions on that?
So I do have a couple questions. So what you were talking about is under 3 different things. The first you said was the Federal Fair Housing Act. Mm-hmm. And the second was you said something about 2013. What was that?
No, in 2016.
Oh, 2016.
DOJ and HUD, Department of Justice and HUD,
Yeah.
put out a joint statement in which they basically gave their position on group homes under the Fair Housing Act.
Okay, great. And
Now, none of that is necessarily, none of that is actually in the Fair Housing Act, but it's a reflection on how those departments would treat zoning practices and land use practices
Okay.
relative to group homes.
So it gives a bigger context.
Yeah.
In a way. Okay, and then the other thing that you mentioned was the Massachusetts Zoning Act.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So the zoning act is 48, chapter 48.
Okay.
And within section 3, I believe it is, which is the section where the Dover Amendment appears, there is a paragraph, and amongst the words in that paragraph is the imposition of land use requirements on congregate living arrangements among non-related persons with disabilities that are not imposed on families and groups of similar size or other unrelated persons shall constitute discrimination.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
All right?
No questions.
So that, and we'll discuss it shortly, but that speaks to the request that is the subject of the application as far as the use. It goes under, table of uses under F1. Now, in addition, section 5.4.2 of the zoning bylaw requires a special permit if a nonconforming structure is being extended, altered, or reconstructed such that the new entity has 25% more habitable floor area than the prior entity. We had a house previously that had 1,318 square feet of what the assessor's office considers living space. That's not habitable floor area. It's close, but it's not habitable floor area. If my arithmetic is correct, and I know that the gross square footage of this property is over 5,000 square feet. If my arithmetic is correct, I think the habitable floor area for this structure would be 1,776.57 square feet.
That's about right.
Habitable floor area would be your bedrooms, your living room, your dining room, your den, your kitchen, and your bathrooms. The laundry room, probably not. Basement, definitely not. All right, that's how we define habitable floor area. So again, the prior house had 1,318 square feet of living space. It probably had less habitable floor area. But if I considered all of that 1,318 to be habitable, the increase in habitable floor area for the new house, which again is going to be a non-conforming structure for the reasons I explained, is more than 25%. So that would require a special permit under section 5.4.2, which, as the board members know, also requires a finding that the or the reconstructed non-conforming structure is not substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood than the prior non-conforming structure.
Okay.
Follow?
Yes.
Lorraine, okay?
Yes.
Kurt?
With you.
Scott, agree or disagree? So, again, if we go to the criteria for special permit, let me read what the bylaw says. Special permits shall be granted by the special permit granting authority only upon its written determination that the adverse effects of the proposed use will not outweigh its beneficial impacts to the town or the neighborhood in view of the particular characteristics of the site and of the proposal in relation to that site. And the factors that we need to consider are the following. Number one is the community needs served by the proposal. I think there's always a community need for housing for disabled individuals. Two is traffic flow and safety, including parking and loading. I don't see any traffic issues that would be imposed by this. Three is adequacy of utilities and other public services. Property is served by, I don't know if you have gas or certainly by electric and water. Four is neighborhood character and social structures. Again, this would be a residential use. Five is impact on the natural environment. I imagine some trees are going to have to come down, but it's not as if you're stripping the property. And six is potential economic and financial impact to the town, including impact on town services, tax base, and employment. Well, certainly there'll be employment opportunities for the several individuals who are going to be working there. But as long as the property is owned by Mr. Kingston and you're not a nonprofit, it's going to be taxable. Right now, it's taxed at a low rate. Previously, it was taxed at certainly a house that's 1,300 plus square feet is going to be taxed less than a house that's 1,776 square feet. So there will be a benefit to the town from a financial standpoint. So I think that the criteria that we have to consider would augur in favor of granting the use special permit, the one that's required under F1. I realize that there could be, well, certainly in the view of the neighbors, that there's going to be adverse effects. We don't know, and I don't think that they're substantial. There are other group homes throughout the town of Foxborough. They're in neighborhoods. I've not heard of any problems relative to them. Again, I don't see any reason under the bylaw and in consideration of the Fair Housing Act and the provision that I read from the Zoning Act that would provide grounds to deny that request. And then we've got to also consider the request as far as the 5.4.2. I'll let others speak now. Let me rest.
Okay, I agree, Barney, with what you just said. Looking down the special permit criteria of 10.4.2, I certainly agree with everything that you said there. And I think number one, the community needs served by the proposal is certainly something that we need to think in. That also ties in with the fair housing, as you just explained to all of us. And let me see. I don't really see that increasing more than the 25%. I don't really see that as an issue here, really.
I agree. I don't see the 25% as detrimental. I think also,
And again, the criteria is substantial detriment, so.
Right. Also, the positive economic and financial impact to the town is there. So again, meeting the community needs and everything else that you already described, I think.
Kurt?
Yeah, I would agree. And when you're talking about the habitable area, that's just for this, is a one-story structure? I'm asking because I wasn't here last time.
Yeah, it's a one-story structure.
Okay.
You have a basement underneath, you probably have an attic.
Yeah, just an attic hutch.
Okay.
I see it up here.
Yeah, so the basement would not be considered to be habitable, the way the definition goes. The porch wouldn't be considered to be habitable. Now, if the porch was winterized and made into a room, or if part of the basement was made like into a rec room or something of that nature, it might be a different story.
Yeah, that's fine. I was just trying to understand, is this the only level that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, there's a basement underneath, full basement.
Okay.
Partial basement.
A partial?
Yeah, crawl space.
And a crawl space?
Yeah, we're not doing the entire footprint as a basement, only
Okay,
a part.
And that's not habitable space?
No,
Okay.
not the way the bylaw reads, no.
Okay.
And by the same token, even though, again, the assessor's office uses living area, that wouldn't be considered living, area for tax purposes in the
Understood.
basement. So I do have a half a dozen conditions that I'd like to read, and then we can talk about them, and then we can make a motion. Number one is that the location of the proposed dwelling on the property, on the subject property, shall be as shown on the certified plot plan, such that there is compliance with zoning bylaw table 4-1's front, side, and rear yard setbacks for single-family dwellings in the R40 residential and agricultural district. 2, the proposed dwelling shall be designed and constructed in accordance with the proposed dwellings architectural plans, and we'll be attaching those as exhibits to the decision. 3, the proposed dwelling shall not at any time contain more than 5 bedrooms. No room or area within the proposed dwelling may be converted, whether in whole or in part, to a bedroom, or may be used, whether in whole or in part, as a bedroom, if not a bedroom as set forth in the proposed dwelling's architectural plans. 4, prior to the issuance of a certificate of occupancy for the proposed dwelling, and as a condition to such certification, Mr. Kingston shall obtain from the Town of Foxborough Director of Public Health certification that the proposed dwelling septic system has been installed, is operational, and is in full compliance with all applicable Town of Foxborough and Commonwealth of Massachusetts regulations and requirements. You would have to do that regardless whether it was imposing or not. 5, a dumpster pad and dumpster shall be installed on the subject property at the time of initial occupancy of the proposed dwelling at a location approved by the Town of Foxborough Building Commissioner. That was a specific request of the town's health director. Okay. 6, the special permit granted by the board under zoning bylaw table 3-1, use group F1, is specific to Mr. Kingston and may not be assigned, conveyed, or transferred thereby to any individual or entity other than an entity of which Mr. Kingston is the majority owner and of which he has operational control. Anything else?
Should we put something in there that says all necessary licenses will be obtained?
So the problem I got with it, I was thinking of that, is that, again, what I'm trying to do in setting these conditions is, if this was just going to be a 5-bedroom house for
Oh,
5 unrelated individuals,
right.
what will we impose? And I think
Right.
each of those would be things we could,
Yes.
well, other than number 6, but
Yes.
each of those would be things we would impose. I would think that you've got an entity that's going to house individuals who are disabled.
Yes.
I may be wrong, but my understanding is they would have to be licensed by the state.
Okay.
They would certainly know what they have to do and what they can't do. So I think I'd rather leave it.
So our requesting that could possibly run afoul of the regulations we were just
Possibly.
speaking of. Okay.
Yeah. I think that looking at it as, the business of that LLC is real estate management. That's really what we're addressing, not any aspect of
Right,
what that lease agreement could be.
right. That makes sense to me, yes.
Now, Ms. Di Pasquale requested a drainage report. I think that's really something for the Board of Health
Yes,
to deal with.
yes.
And I would think that he would, when he, meeting Mr. Brennan, would deal with it in connection with the septic system.
Yeah.
Yes, I agree with the conditions.
Okay, want to make a motion, someone?
So I move that, well, are we doing the whole thing all at once? Or are
Yeah.
we just talking about the conditions?
Why don't we, to approve both special permits?
Okay.
Special permit under Table 3-1, Use Group F1, and under Section 5.4.2, with those conditions.
So moved.
Second?
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We'll probably decide, I've got to sign a decision by the middle of next week. After we all sign our decision, this decision, it's filed with the town clerk, and people who had notice of the matter will be notified of that. That starts a 20-day appeal period. You have the right to appeal our decision. It has to be done within those 20 days. Appeal has to be filed either in the Massachusetts Land Court or the Norfolk County Superior Court, but it has to be done within those 20 days. One thing you're going to have to do is to file our decision in Norfolk County Registry of Deeds. And certainly when you get to the point of applying for whatever permits you need to apply for with Mr. Shippey, you'll have to give him evidence that it's been filed. Okay? If you have any questions, you can call Scott Shippey, you can call Diana. Okay? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Minutes from what meeting? Last month.
August 17th.
August.
Barney sent me some minor changes.
Well, they were kind of major because you were referring to
Yeah.
different
I
places.
had
to arrange
Mr. Ms. problem.
Mr.
I didn't even see that. I was going to say, they look
I did
great.
spell melon right this time. I hit the
I
R
can-
instead of the
If
S.
it's easier, I can be a mister. It's fine. For August, I can be mister.
So,
I was going to say, I thought they looked good.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. We've got what, so far, 2?
Well, one official, one came in today, she's in the process. Don't know about the third.
Yeah. So we may have, what, 3 next week? We may have 3, right, next month, to your knowledge?
Okay.
All right.
I do believe so.
Here.
That's it from my standpoint. A motion to adjourn?
That's it. Yeah.
Second.
All in favor? Thank you.
Barney, I won't be here in October.
You won't be here in August?
Yeah, for the, yeah, so write it up for the Sun Chronicle.
Right, so the one we know for sure is Sherwood Ave.
Yes.
Okay, that's the one we know for sure.
RONICLE.
So we have that one already.
Yeah, plus,
We know this one.
this is possibly another group home.